To my melanated family and spiritually conscious brothers and sisters around the world. I am Brother Tommy. And it is time to get it in. One Love Family. This video is going to discuss the Christian Black Codes of 1724. The Christian Black Codes of 1724 were initiated during Reconstruction after the Civil War to control blacks after they were emancipated. Passed by Southern states, instead of giving blacks the same rights as white people, the codes limited the blacks' freedom severely. They included that blacks had to be in service of a white person, that they could not have congregations together, that they could not speak out, and that they could not have weapons. They also included that blacks could not go out without a white supervisor, thus blacks had to take on the religions and holidays and gods of their white superiors. These same black codes were said to have been made null and void with the ratification of the 13th Amendment in 1865, although many Southern states adopted black codes to keep former slaves from voting and imposed other restrictions. The 14th and 15th Amendments were to supposedly have eliminated these codes, but as you read them down below, and study the law of the land in conjunction with religion and politics, you'll discover through the 54 articles that these codes have been modernized in a disguise, and many are still in effect to this very day. Article 1. Decrees the expulsion of the Jews from the colony. Article 2. Make it imperative on masters to impart religious instruction to their slaves. Article 3. Permits the exercise of the Roman Catholic's creed only, every other mode of worship is prohibited. Article 4. Negroes placed under the direction or supervision of any other person than a Catholic are liable to confiscation. Article 5. Sundays and holy days, holidays, are to be strictly observed. All Negroes found at work on these days are to be confiscated. Article 6. We forbid our white subjects of both sexes to marry with the blacks under penalty of being fined and subjected to some other arbitrary punishment. We forbid all curates, priests, or missionaries of our secular or regular clergy, and even our chaplains in our navy, to sanction such marriages. We also forbid all of our white subjects, and even the manumitted or freeborn blacks, to live in a state of concubinage with slaves. Should there be any issue from this kind of intercourse, it is our will that the person so offending, and the master of the slave should pay each a fine of 300 livres. Should said issue be the result of concubinage of the master his slave, said master shall not only pay the fine, but be deprived of the slave and of the children, who shall be adjudged to the hospital of the locality, and said slave shall be forever incapable of being set free. But shall this illicit intercourse have existed between a free black and his slave, when said slave according to the forms described by the Church, said slave shall become free and legitimate, and in such case there shall be no application of the penalties mentioned in the present article. Article 7. The ceremonies and forms prescribed by the Ordinance of Blois and by the Edict of 1691, for marriage, shall be observed both with regard to free persons and slaves. But the consent of the father and mother of the slave is not necessary, that of the master shall be the only one required. Article 8. We forbid all curates to process to effect marriages between slaves without the proof of the consent of their master, and we also forbid all masters to force their slaves into marriages against their wills. Article 9. Children, issued from the marriage of slaves shall follow the condition of their parents, and shall belong to the master of the wife and not of the husband, if the husband and the wife have different masters. Article 10. If the husband be a slave, and the wife a free woman, it is our will that their children, of whatever sex they be, shall share the condition of their mother, and be as free as she, notwithstanding the servitude of their father, and if the father be free and the mother a slave, then the children shall be slaves. Article 11. Masters shall have their Christian slaves buried in consecrated ground. Article 12. We forbid slaves to carry offensive weapons or heavy sticks under the penalty of being whipped, and of having said weapons confiscated for the benefit of the person seizing the same. An exception is made in favor of those slaves who are hunting or are shooting for their masters, and who carry with them a written permission to that effect, or are being designated by some known mark or badge. Article 13. We forbid slaves belonging to different masters to gather in crowds either by day or by night, under the pretext of a wedding, or for any other cause, either at the dwelling or on the grounds of one of their masters or elsewhere, unless on the highways or in secluded places, under the penalty of corporal punishment, which shall not be less than the whip. In case of frequent offenses of the kind, the offenders shall be branded with the mark of the flower de luce, and should there be aggravating circumstances, capital punishment may be applied, at the discretions of the judges. We command all of our subject, be they officials or not, to seize offenders, to arrest and conduct them to prison, although there should be not judgment against them. Article 14. Masters who shall be convicted of having permitted or tolerated such gatherings as aforesaid, composed of other slaves than their own, shall be sentenced individually, to indemnify their neighbors for the damages occasioned by said gatherings, and to pay, for the first time, a fine of 30 livres, and double that sum on the repetitions of the offense. Article 15. We forbid Negroes to sell any commodities, provisions, or produce of any kind, without the written permission of their masters, or without wearing their known marks or badges, and any persons purchasing anything from Negroes in violation of this article, shall be sentenced to pay a fine of 1,500 livres. Articles 16, 17, 18, and 19. Provide at length for the clothing of slaves and for their subsistence. Article 20. Slaves, who shall not be properly fed, clad, and provided for by their masters, may give information thereof to the Attorney General of the Superior Council, or to all the officers of an inferior jurisdiction, and may put the written exposition of their wrongs into the hands, upon which information, and even ex officio, shall the information come from another quarter, the Attorney General shall prosecute said masters without charging any cost to the complainant. It is our will that this regulation be observed in all accusations for crimes or barbarous and inhumane treatment brought by slaves against their masters. Article 21. Slaves who are disabled from working, either by old age, disease or otherwise, be the diseases incurable or nor, shall be fed and provided for by their masters, and in case they should have been abandoned by said masters, said slave shall be adjudged to the nearest hospital, to which said master shall be obliged to pay 8 cents a day for the food, and maintenance of each one of these slaves, and for the payment of this sum, said hospital shall have a lien on the plantation masters. Article 22. We declare that slaves have no right to any kind of property but that all that they acquire either by their own industry, or by the ability of others, or by any other means or title whatever shall be the full property of their masters, and the children of said slaves, their fathers, mothers, their kindred or other relation either free or slave shall have no pretensions or claim thereto, either through testamentary nor positions or donations inter vivace, which dispositions and donations we declare null and void, and also whatever promise they may have entered into by persons incapable of disposing of anything and or participating to any contract. Article 23. Masters shall be responsible for what their slaves have done by their command, and also for what transactions they have permitted their slaves to do in their shops, in the particular line of commerce with whom they were entrusted, and in case said slaves should have acted without order or authorization of their masters, said masters shall be responsible only for so much as has turned to their profit, and if said masters have not profited by the dining or transaction of their slaves, the per curiam which the masters have permitted the slave to own, shall be subjected to all claims against said slaves, after deduction made by the masters of what may be due to them, and if said per curiam should consist in whole or in part of merchandises in which the slaves had permission to traffic, the masters shall only come in for their share in common with the other creditors. Article 24. Slaves shall be incapable of all public functions, and of being constituted agents for any other person than their donations, either by testamentary dispositions or by acts inter vivos from the whites. Said donations shall be null and void, and the objects of said donations shall be applied to the benefits of the nearest hospital. Article 53. We commend all manumitted slaves to show the profoundest respect to their former masters, to their widows and children, and any injury or insult offered by said manumitted slaves to their former masters, their widows or children, shall be punished with more severity than if it had been offered to any other person. We, however, declared them exempt from the discharge of all duties or service, and from payment of all taxes or fees, or anything else in relation to their persons, or to their personal or real estate, either during the life or after the death of said slave. Article 54. We grant manumitted slaves the same rights, privileges, and immunities which are enjoyed by free-born persons. It is our pleasure that their merit in having acquired their freedom shall produce in their favor not only with regards to their persons, but also to their property, the same effects which our other subjects derive from the happy circumstances of their having been born free. In the name of the King. Thanks for listening, family. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Until the next video. Peace.